Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Creative Collaboration Conversations with Veronica and Jillian. And I am Jillian. This
And
is
I'm
Veronica. Hello.
Hello, everyone. And Jillian, so nice to be with you again for another edition of our podcast.
Yes.
How are you? How's life?
Life has been busy. Life has been busy. But I just got back from holiday. And through my holiday, I kept thinking about returning and having the chance to connect with you and to record another episode. So that it's like one of those things when you're on holiday and you don't want it to be over. In this case, I actually was, I'll say, pseudo looking forward to it because I enjoy our chats always, and it's helpful for me to kind of reinvigorate my energy supply. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm quite happy to be back at home and be able to record a podcast episode with you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you for saying that. And I have to admit, I enjoy our discussions because I don't know if our listeners know, but what we do here is having a proper chat with a cup of tea now because it's cold or a coffee. But we just select in advance the topics and then we just see where everything goes. And for today's episode, actually, we want to discuss about growing your team
Mm-hmm.
and maybe share a little bit of our experiences. I think you have even more experience than I do on that because you do have a quite, I would say, quite a large team on your side. How do you select your people, or how do sometimes let go to people because unfortunately that's
Mm,
part of the process. And
mm,
overall, what tools do you use? How do you
mm,
structure everything? And I have to say,
mm,
I'm actually in process of doing this, so
mm, mm.
I'm looking forward to get some tips from you as well, besides sharing my experience.
Well, I feel the same. I'm quite interested to hear what changes you are making right now. Because I feel like anytime you go through kind of process updates or kind of reorg, et cetera, it's an opportunity to step forward in a more concise way, and it can be a growth opportunity. So I'm really interested to hear more about you and kind of what your transition is right now, what changes you're making. So let's see here. So I'll share a couple things just to get started. There's so many pieces. I feel like I might have to sketch some notes on my wall so I don't forget. um
I must say every single time when we record this and I see your wall, I'm like a little bit envious, I have to say, and I'm looking around me and say, where can I do something similar?
yep.
Because it's very inspiring. I'm a big fan
Oh,
of post-its and I just
mm,
keep on posting them
mm-hmm,
because you can delete like reuse them or just change them quite easily, but
mm-hmm.
they don't they don't tend to stick so well to the wall.
Right. Right. And I've actually tried the peel and stick whiteboards too.
Mm.
Um, yeah, there was one. Yeah, I have a story about that for another day. But Whitey board back in the day. Anyhow, I've not had super good luck with those. So this time, creating my new office space, we went for the whiteboard paint we'd mentioned in a previous episode, and it's been amazing. And now I've actually only did like 2 sections, but I want to complete the rest of this wall on this side. But I love it. It's like the best to be able to, for me, to be able to, very visual. So to be
Hmm.
able to sketch out ideas and connect dots and just, yeah, I guess brainstorm.
Yeah.
So I use it more so as that, and reminders, like big picture reminders and whatnot. But anyhow, okay, so let's see here.
Let's see how we're gonna use it this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Stay tuned. I'll find out.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So, okay. So I appreciate what you're saying. And um, yeah. So before, on my first kind of the first growth spurt with my agency, 10 plus years ago, we grew very organically, extremely fast, right? So you probably have heard this story before that we went from
Hmm.
0 to 30 people on the team in about 18 months or so, 12,
Huge
yeah, right
growth.
around there. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty extreme. And then we hit 40 people on the team. And around that time is when I had a bit of a meltdown because it was not, um, yeah, it became like, I remember there was this threshold where at first it was like very motivating for me when we had like 10 and then we hit 15, 20, like somewhere around like 10 to, I don't know, 20, around 20, 10 to 20 people in there. I felt very motivated. It was so inspiring for me to help, create business and provide like revenue streams for all of these people and families. So that was like the most motivating thing for me. But then when we started to approach like 25 people on the team, 30, 35, then that like motivation, like inspiration flipped to like panic. And I was like always nervous about whether or not I could sustain that because it was so organic. It was a very reactive business, and 100% of the business was coming in through referrals. And that's the tricky part is like I knew enough, or at least I felt like I knew enough to know that it wasn't a guarantee that there would be another referral or another referral. And so I was like, and at that point, I had people on my team, I had all contractors, and I had people on my team who started asking if they could come on full time with me and leave their jobs and just work with me. And um, that was like very humbling for me to know that they wanted that. I really appreciated it so much, but it also scared me a bit, and I kind of tossed and turned with that idea. I always felt like there was more value building through contractors because number one, um, was able to keep the overhead at a minimum,
Yeah.
and therefore not having to sell to meet my overhead.
Oh,
Excuse me.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm
Yeah, and go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm the way I structure my business and how I do it is pretty much the same. So I think now I'm in the turning point, like where do I want to go? And especially with contractors, they're amazing. But if one is drops out of the blue for several reasons, what do you do? And you need to came up with replacements. And that's actually, I mean, the situation and wasn't so hard to do. But then the problem comes, do I have the right processes in place to easily
Mm.
fill in that position? And I'm actually in process of creating that and seeing what does need to be adapted. What tools do we need to put in place to have a smooth
Mm-hmm.
transition? And my goal is also to go towards a core team that is on my payroll and not contractors. And in one way, I kind of feel I'm almost there. But as any entrepreneur out there, especially for smaller businesses and agencies, it's a very scary moment. It is a very scary
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Yeah, I think especially with like looking at labor laws, which is one of the things I was looking at before, although I was in the
Mm.
US, and labor laws are very different than they are here in the Netherlands.
Yes, they
So
are.
that is a factor that I'm very aware of because, excuse me, pardon. That's, yeah, labor laws always have to be taken into consideration. Yeah, and so that's one of the things I'm looking at now. But I also, yeah, so I understand what you're saying about when you're kind of have a team of contractors that you rely and depend on, and what happens if one of them has an issue or whatever's going on. But
Life
really,
happens.
yeah, the same thing can happen if they're an employee.
Yes.
I mean,
And actually, the
people get sick.
responsibility in that point is even higher.
Yeah, yeah, it's like our responsibility as a business owner um, maybe is different if it's an employee or a contractor,
Mhm.
but still having to deal with like the day-to-day operations is the same challenge, right? You still have somebody, you still have a hole in the team, you have a
Yes.
void, right? So one of the things that I did originally in my, I don't know, the 1.0 build, I guess, I don't know what you would call that. So in the 1.0, what I ended up building into was having, for example, I had three graphic designers, and their price points were all different depending on if they were print or digital only, their years of experience, the number of tools, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a bit of variety in terms of the their kind of hourly rate. But what I would do is build client teams. And then
Yeah.
I would pick and choose, like kind of put their teams together that made sense, so that ideally there would be some people on the team that ideally would be kind of target customers for the client or
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And then also outside perspectives as well. So I would mix and match and create client teams. So I always had, because I never wanted to be in the situation where if I need graphics and I don't have my graphics person, if she's on holiday or something, that, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So but I didn't have that
I
out of the gate. I built into that and trying to figure out, I mean, it feels like easy when you have an abundance of business to be able to do that, but the build to that is tricky.
I know it. I'm actually structuring all the teams for my clients very similar, and I did it from
Mm,
the beginning.
mm,
Um, and it does work. However, sometimes you will have you'll still have issues, or
yeah,
someone will be sick,
sure.
or because you can't have. I'm aiming for each contract to have, if something happens, to have a backup,
Yeah.
but it can be very challenging because, of course, as
Mm-hmm.
you said, each contractor has a different price point, and even if you have a backup, the price point can be different, or different things that need to be considered. Sometimes they will be
Yep.
in your advantage, but sometimes actually they will work in your disadvantage. So you
Yep.
do need
Yep.
to build a buffer
Yep.
in terms of pricing
Yep.
to be
You
able
know,
to serve them
yeah, and the
and pay
pricing thing is,
everyone.
yeah, paying everybody. That's the key. It's yeah, that's the whole objective,
Uh,
including paying
yeah,
ourselves as business owners.
exactly. This is what I
Yeah.
wanted to mention. Yes,
Yeah.
don't forget
That's
that,
coming
because
up.
we do forget to pay ourselves sometimes, or that
We
comes
do.
really
We do.
low.
So I know that discussion is coming up in a future episode. So I'm keen to dig into that one with you about like the finance side of running the business, et cetera. But for today, growing the team, um, yeah, it's interesting. So when I hit the 40-ish people on the team, we also began at that point. I began to scale back, and part of that growth was during a time when the economy was sketchy for some people and having a harder time. So I started kind of ingesting small agencies that were having trouble with business development, like 2-3 person teams, as well as some influencers and people who had large audiences, people who had very specific skill set, and were really great practitioners, but maybe didn't love the business side of it. So they like the freedom, the flexibility to be a freelancer, but not necessarily wanting to run a business. And so I started
Yes.
kind of adding those people to the team. But then, like I said, when we got to a certain point, it felt like, yeah, I felt like it just happened overnight kind of a thing. And I wanted to deliberately press pause and try to recalibrate. And so I started to scale back a bit. Um, I had one of my best people on the team. He wanted to come on full time, and I wasn't able to at that point. I just felt like it just wasn't quite ready. And so had to make that really hard decision to tell him that I couldn't do that. And so he had to leave, and he took a full time job, and he's great, amazing. Anyhow, and yeah, so from there, I just would communicate with my team that this is what we're doing, and I don't have more work right now, or I'll keep you posted, et cetera, et cetera. And then scaled back to be able to carry through.
Actually, I will jump in here because you made a very good point. There's a difference between a freelancer and running a business, because the freelancers, they usually have one or two projects, maximum three projects, at least in the Netherlands, because if you are a ZZPer, you're obliged by law to have three clients. And it's a difference between maintaining that, and those projects usually they have only for expertise. So if you're a designer, they will design, or content creator only create content. It's very niched. However, if you have a more complex project, like you said, you do need to create a team, and we are in the same situation because we do work very similar. So that means you probably have a designer, a content creator, a social media specialist, sometimes doing ads, and I'm always involved in the strategy. So you do have 2 to 5, even more people in a specific project. But what I'm noticing for us, when you're doing that, you need to see the bigger picture. And I don't know if you ever face this issue because you're negotiating the price, you have the price there. But some of the freelancers don't really understand when you're running a business, you have so many other expenses and you need to coordinate so many things. And they do see we are partners. They don't, sometimes maybe they want to be paid more than just the value of their work because they change from I'm part of the team to I'm a partner, but they don't really understand getting the client, managing the relationship, doing all the admin work, doing the marketing and the sales process for all of this. There's another cost. Did you ever face this situation?
Oh, sure. So how I handle that, and I think this is kind of what you're alluding to. So there's one contractor specifically I'm thinking about that this was, and it happened more than just with this one person, but in this one example, his hourly rate was quite high. So we talked a little bit about it, and I said, well, tell me, what does your typical engagement look like? And tell me, how do you get those clients? And, tell me about it. And as he described it, I said, okay, so here's what I'm willing to do. I can't quite meet your hourly rate or I'm going to be in the red and we're not going to have a viable business anymore. However, what is it worth to you if I can like more or less guarantee you business every week, every month for the next 3 months, 6 months and beyond? Right. So how much time does it take you to go out and get all those clients? And so I encouraged him, continue to do that. If you can get $150 an hour, go for it all day long. I will help you to do that. But for the projects that you're working on with me, I can't meet that hourly rate. But I can give you 20 hours a month, every month, right? And so for them to begin to understand the value of that and having that like steady income is what was really appealing to many people on my team.
I like that. That's a very good point. And I'm trying. What I'm seeing actually, it's a generational difference because, shall we say, the more experienced generations, they do understand that because they actually went and tried to find the client and had those discussions and they see the younger ones, let's say the 25 below 30 years, they don't really understand. And I it's a shift, like they do want more with less work, or they don't really properly understand what you need to invest in order to get there. Or let's say we both were very similar. We do have clients through referrals, through networking, like we are out there and this is how we get our clients. But to get to that point, actually, we worked over 35 years, 40 years to be able to be there.
Don't say 35 to 40 years.
Sorry. 20
Yikes.
20 years.
A long time. Yeah. Okay.
A very long time. We did work a very long time to be able to get there and to understand how people think or what they need, or to get our experience to be able to provide what we are providing, to see those connections, to see who should talk with whom, or can we actually serve that client and what's the best approach for that client. Because the work that we are doing is very personalized, right? It's very tailor-made. So this why actually it works what we do. And this why I'm also working with so many contractors, because if I have just a core team and I need to put this core team on all my clients, I will not be able to provide the best work for them. Each client has a specific tone of voice, specific needs, specific approach that requires specific expertise and specific people to be able to implement it. And actually it's a philosophy. I will always going to work with freelancers and contractors because of that. It's impossible to have in your payroll people with all those skills to be able to serve all the clients. It just doesn't make sense.
Sure. The way that I always would articulate that to clients is it's actually leaner and like far more cost effective, and I feel like more strategically adept to have a team. Like you can have a core team, but to then add on the necessary components based on the particular project or client that you have, because otherwise if you have a roster of these 6 skills. It's like when you have 6 hammers, you find 6 nails. Everything is a
Yeah.
nail. It's that idea, as opposed, and that's, I never wanted to be in the position of like, this is what I have to sell. This is what I must sell. And this is what I have to sell. Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always wanted to work from the place of what is the client's needs. And so
Yeah.
even recently is like, hopefully this isn't too much of like a off the deep end here, but even recently, because over the years we've done lots of websites, etc. But there's a client that I have that's been with me now for 10 years. It's crazy. They
Wow.
keep paying us. I think we need to. I think it's like we're getting close to that time where it's like we should be seeing other people. That conversation maybe should come up. But
And
for
it's
now,
not you, it's me.
yeah, exactly. I just think that it's time for us to both grow, kind of stretch our wings, kind of thing. But in any case, so over the years, we've done lots of websites. This particular client, we could do their website, but I felt like it would be, I don't know, I felt like bringing in an outside source, right? And so I had met another woman who does SEO websites, etc. So I spoke with her ahead of time, had her do an audit, and then teed up the whole thing. And as I was telling my client, I said, you know, there's this other woman. She has an agency. I think she's a great. And they were like, Jillian, why? They couldn't understand it. And I'm like, here's the deal. I am not interested in like sucking up every single nickel. Like I don't. That's not what I'm trying to do. My total objective is to look at how to get the best thing for the client in the most
Yeah.
efficient way. And I don't. Yeah, I'm not nervous about losing the business. Like I'm often trying to send them to somebody else or wherever. And in this case, I was trying to set them up with this other agency, and they were a little bit. But Jillian, you're our person. Like we want to work with your team. I'm like, yeah, my team is still here, but we're going to bring in this other vendor, and we'll help manage the process, make sure
Yeah.
you get what you're looking for, etc. And so we do that sometimes as well. So I'm very much about, yeah, so I'm very much about having a core team as well, and then bringing in various skill sets as needed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if you don't mind for a moment, I'm going to use that to wrap in and kind of address one of the other conversation we're having about compensation,
Mm-hmm.
because this is a conversation I also have with clients, specifically small business clients, when they're focusing on kind of HR, talent acquisition, or even talent retention. And so this whole kind of team situation is a big one for me. I talk a lot about this, and it's like a soapbox issue for me, especially because I have watched many small businesses over the years kind of churn people, because they go about it in a very haphazard way. And so for me, I understand for a small business, it's often hard to feel like you can compete with the bigger companies because they have more resources or they can pay them more. But the way I see it, and the way that we work with our clients is also the way we're trying to kind of embody this as well as a company, which is exploring other ways that we can compensate, other ways we can benefit this person on the team, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's a
talking
good
about the
approach.
younger
Mm-hmm.
folks, yeah, so it's sometimes about the hourly rate, but it's about the consistency. So we're going to work on this project for, however
Yeah.
long. Like, yeah, so most of my team has been with me for many years, and they know that, and they know each other, etc. So in addition to just the hourly compensation, another thing that has worked well for me, and I think maybe sounds scary at first to any prospective clients, are like, but I think there's far more value and benefit in it, which is creating the environment for my team to be able to, they all have like one or two skills that are their like main things. But
Mm-hmm.
generally, the people that we work with also have something else that they're interested in. And that's like
Yeah.
one of our foundational kind of core values is like curiosity and a kind of maybe not insatiable appetite like me, but a strong desire to continue to learn. So therefore, if I know somebody on my team is wanting to test out something new or try something or develop a new skill, I'll look for opportunities for them to do so. It doesn't mean I'm just going to send somebody out there who's never done ads before or whatever. Like, go figure it out. It doesn't mean that. It's a little bit more strategic than that. But we do create the opportunity for people to test new things, to be able to try things,
Mhm.
and creating different teams, etc. And partners, like kind of people partnering up together on things, because that's something that they don't really necessarily have the opportunity to do in other places. And more than likely in a larger organization, they're going to be only doing their one thing that they were hired for.
So, Jillian, the more we talk, the more I realized we are so similar because I do the same. I do
Yeah.
implement it slightly different, but we do have meetings. And my question is, what do you want to develop? What's the next thing that you
Mm,
want to learn about? And
mm,
everyone is sharing different things, or they just want to go deeper in what they like. You know how it goes.
mm. Yep.
And then we figure it out what's the best way to get where they want to in terms of learning. Can be a course, can be study and allocate some time. And then we do start playing around, implementing, matching them. But what I do it is more with putting my own company as providing my own company as a
Yeah.
playground instead of the
Yeah. Me
client.
too. Yes. I
And
do
would
both.
be,
But
yeah,
yes, I love that. Yeah,
they
go ahead.
it can go to the client, but for me to do that, I do need to be short, like assured that
Yeah,
the
of
quality
course.
is, but we do that. And this is why we do have, like, for example, the base conference that I launched in
Hmm.
2019. It was because I really wanted to create a conference and to see, am I able to? And of course, it was also business reason behind it because I was growing the company and like, I need the knowledge basically. So how about we put everyone together and we start having a conversation and we see what that leads to. And but doing that and then getting people interested in the same thing with different qualities or
Mm.
different
Hmm.
expertise, this is how a new project was launched. And we do a lot of internal things like that. We are about to launch an accelerator now for marketing that
Mm.
has, it's actually our knowledge but placed differently, or we are looking at different tools like yourself, like what are the
Mm.
best tools that we can use, and we can provide
Mm.
feedback to our clients as well afterwards.
Mm.
Because if you
Hmm.
start playing with them and you make all the errors, because let's be honest, when you start playing with new tools,
Yeah.
you do need to figure it out what's the best way. But
Yes.
we do use spin ideas as a playground
Hmm.
for learning,
Hmm.
definitely.
So I love that. We do the same. Especially, I feel like most recently we did that with Google Analytics 4 when that was rolling out. So we used my company as a place to kind of play around and plug and unplug things and see how to set that up and to optimize, etc. Um, so yeah, for sure. So you mentioned tools, and now I feel like a
That's
super
your
nerd
that's
with
your
this stuff. Yeah, I know.
that's
So
your
I'm really
topic.
curious. Yeah, yeah. So what have like I mean, we don't need to go down memory lane too much. So I guess we'll just stick to now. Are there any which tools do you use and have you made any changes recently?
I'm actually in process of doing that. So I'm not gonna share at this point because we are testing. So if I'm saying
Mm.
something, it may not be the one that we're gonna use. So give us 1 month or two.
No, you won't. Will you just mention some that you have used or some that you're testing? I'm just
We are a
curious.
big fan of Airtable, for example, especially for
Mm-hmm.
delivering and approving. But we do realize we need a different tool for proper project management. So we are
Mm-hmm.
looking into Notion, for example, to see if that
Yep.
will fit us. We are also looking for different CSR programs and how to manage all the assets for clients. So
Mm.
we are looking at different things. And especially when you have so many people working remotely, how do you, it's not like you have a
Yeah.
computer and everyone has access. Actually, you do have
Right.
that with the cloud, but you do want to make sure it's
Secure.
secure
Yep.
and safe, and also who has access to that. That's very
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yep. Yep.
So
Interesting.
we are in process of doing that, and I do have several tools. I'm going to mention, I promise to share them later, but there are so many that we are trying at this point that is so hard for me to say use this one or that one works better because
Yeah,
I
but
honestly don't know.
it's more, I don't know. To me, I'm more, again, just having coffee with you, I'm more interested in like which ones you're testing, because yeah, because maybe there's one I haven't seen, or your experience, as opposed to what one you're saying. We're definitely using this one. I think there's an
Yeah.
abundance of tools out there. It's like for any of the things like
Honestly,
email
it's a little
marketing,
bit, yeah, it's a little bit
like
overwhelming with how
yeah,
many there are, and a lot of
right.
them are very good. And I think it's also which one works better for you in terms of using it, and that's very
Mm-hmm.
personal. Because, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you have Miro, that I know
Mm-hmm.
so many people that love Miro. For me, for my brain, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm able to follow it because I know a lot of people that love it. But for me, it will never be my to-go
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
platform. So I think it's very. I'm a little bit reluctant when it comes to that, because there are so many other factors to consider when you're using a
Mm-hmm.
tool. It's not like which one is the best, and that's very subjective because we
Right.
are
Of
wired
course.
differently, and
Right. Right.
we do work. Some people work better visually, some people prefer
Mm-hmm.
writing, some people. I'm a
Right.
big fan of actually taking notes that help me
Mm-hmm.
tremendously think. Like you have the whiteboard that we
Yep.
just discussed. For me, that's
Yep.
also good. Other prefer to put everything in like a whiteboard, on a digital whiteboard. That doesn't work
Mm.
that well for me, for example. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's
Mm-hmm.
also a generational difference here, because how were you used to do that? And if you're taught to do
Mm.
everything like digitally,
Mm.
it works better. Even if statistics show the moment you're writing down, your brain actually registers everything better, and not writing it
Mm.
down on a keyboard, but actually with a pen or pencil, writing it down on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's actually a different, that's more a philosophical or maybe even scientific discussion
Yeah.
that we could have.
Yeah, or it's the story you tell yourself. Haha. Because listen,
That's
I just have
also,
to say, no, 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 because I used to say the exact same thing because
uh,
I always had my notebooks, always. And I would always, I was so, you know what it was like? Did you have a, what do we call those? Blackberry? And like
hmm,
the phone. All right. So
I
remember
never
when we
had
had
one,
the,
but I know them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, really?
I
Oh,
had
so
the
you didn't have
Nokia.
the, okay. So, but so you didn't really have the Blackberry experience where you could touch and feel all the different keys. And
No,
then
I
going
did
over
not.
to like the iPhone was like, this is not going to work. I need to feel the keys. It was like, this
No,
isn't right. It's never going
I
to
did not
work. It
have
was
that.
like, okay, so there's that. Anybody, any old school people who have been working for 45 years like us might remember the BlackBerry situation. But this feels like very similar because I was so totally like hook, line, and sinker into my notebooks. And like I was pretty efficient with them and everything. But I kept thinking that it's not the most efficient because if there's a task, I need to send it to somebody else or whatever, or
Yeah.
update it, or to be able to find it, to go back through my notes and try to find the date. It was like not efficient. So I started seeing that, and that awareness began to grow until finally I was like, I need to just rip off the band-aid and start working with, online, just with tools
Hmm.
online. And so I made that transition. And now that I have done that, it is so much, I feel like so much more efficient. And then I can be anywhere and I have access to all of my notes. I can add things. It's like very kind of seamless now. It's easier for me to search things, to organize things, to ascertain data from it, et cetera, et cetera. But I still love the eye hand kind of coordination and be able to connect my thoughts, which is why I do my whiteboard thing.
Yeah. I don't
But
think one
anyhow,
excludes the other though, because
yeah, sure.
I will still have my notebook, like even now.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree with you. You, for efficiency and better coordination, you do need to do everything digitally, like how we work
Yeah,
with the podcast or with the team. The
yeah,
moment I'm okay, this needs to be done, I can actually tag the responsible person and to
mm-hmm.
have that done. Hence why we are looking for a good project management tool to be able
Okay,
to do all of that.
okay,
So one doesn't exclude the other, because one is the
sure.
process, my own process of thinking and just getting information board and processing that. And that for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, definitely writing as well, it's helping me.
Mm-hmm.
But for efficiency, like we can use different tools. We discussed, I
Yeah,
think, one or two episodes, like Otter or
yeah,
Firefly, you know. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
one does, you
yeah,
can do them in parallel.
sure.
and one you
Sure,
can
sure.
take and move forward, and one is for you personally, and it's what do I need to do? Like I'm
Hmm.
responsible mostly for the strategy and for the creative part, so I can
Hmm.
go over my notes and make different connections. So
Hmm.
one doesn't exclude the other. It's
Sure.
just how do you better combine so everything
Yeah.
works smoothly? And that
Yeah.
we come back to actually how do you structure everything?
Yeah, yeah. So you're mentioning project management. So I'm just going to share. So years ago, my assistant production manager, she was tasked with this to figure out what we should use for project management. And so at the time, a lot of people were using Basecamp, and
I
there were
remember
a whole
Basecamp.
bunch. Yeah, so there were a whole bunch that she looked at. Asana,
Yeah,
Trello.
that one as well.
Yeah, so looked at all the typical ones. But the one she came back and recommended that we use was called Teamwork. And at the time, I had never heard of it, and nobody I knew was using it. But looking at what she had pulled together for her project and how she deduced that that was the best tool, I put a lot of stock in that because I had asked her to do that. She worked on that and was very thorough in her work. And so I decided, it looked good, so we moved forward and we set up Teamwork back in, I think, like 2014 or something, many years ago. And so we've been with them for a long time, and they've gone through several iterations and whatnot. And then, yeah, eventually the
Are you
plan
still
we were
using
on,
it?
we are, but the plan we were on was a legacy plan, and then they sunsetted that. Sunset. I always have these moments. Grammarly, we need Grammarly for audio. Anyhow, yeah. So and so my going back to my team and how we structure and how we work. So when we kind of moved along, we lost just the experience for us wasn't as cohesive as we were looking for. And so we are still with Teamwork right now, and are working on kind of stripping things down to rebuild it, because we had all of this years of like process and kind of yeah, how we did things, and then suddenly it didn't work with the new setup, so it became a little
Mm.
bit difficult. So what we've done is decide to strip it back and then to rebuild. So we have, at the same time, also trying to look at other tools too, but now I have 10 years of data in that
It's
tool,
easier to
which is,
stay
yeah,
there.
which is
Yeah.
pretty amazing. But we also use Airtable. I'm a huge fan of Airtable. I also
Yeah.
set up
Same
Airtable.
here.
Excuse me. We set up Airtable many years ago, but I've been using it more recently, so I really like that one. Um, but in any
It's
case,
easy tool to work, but I do feel that I don't know teamwork, but I do feel
mm,
Airtable is amazing, as said, but I think
mm,
it's more for concrete work and approval, and
mm.
for proper project management, another tool will be better.
Right. So
Definitely, I'm gonna.
that's what we're doing now. We're doing that
Yeah,
now because I like Airtable for content,
yeah.
and some workflows and whatnot, but the overall project management. And the other thing that I do like about Teamwork, it has an integrated chat feature. So
Mm.
rather than bringing in Slack or another outside tool and trying to mash all these
Oh yeah.
together, it's integrated. And so we do use that. And the mobile app is actually really good. So my team uses that quite often, which is a pretty great feature to have that integrated. Um,
Definitely,
but
I'm gonna give it a look, give
sure.
it a try.
Um, so looking back at our topic here, anything else that you haven't had a chance to share, in terms of kind of structuring your team? Um, yeah, how to make, what adjustments are you making, your goals, roles, any of that?
Honestly, what is the most important? I think we always start with the topic and end up in 10
Yeah.
parts.
Yes.
And this is what I love about our chat. But what
Yes.
I'm realizing actually, what is the most important thing when it comes to the team is to have that we do need to connect in terms of values. Because if
Mm,
we don't even need to have the same style of working, but to head towards the same direction and to follow the same principles, then the work is done and is done at a high level. And I'm always
mm-hmm,
telling my team, I don't really care when you work or what you do, as long as the work is delivered at the quality that
mm-hmm,
we require by the time that we need to, I'm
mm-hmm,
fine. So you don't need to work 8 hours, or even if we agreed upon a price, if you are smart and you can do it in half of the time, like good for
Right.
you. I don't
Right.
really care. Like
Right. Right.
I
Right.
want you to figure it out that because that
Right.
will give you more time to do. And in order to get to that point, you really need to spend time with the people in your team and actually
Hmm.
have that human connection. I keep on going back to the human side, but I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
think that's very important because once that you have that, you establish that connection and you work well together because you share values like us, like we keep on talking and we do
Hmm.
have so many similarities because
Yeah. Yep.
we do work according to the same values, and that's the most important thing. And
Yeah.
not,
Sure.
of course, the tools and the processes and the systems are important, but they're secondary
Yeah. Yeah.
and they can always be changed. And I think
Yeah.
it's the hardest, and this is the phase I'm going through. The hardest is the moment when those values are not shared anymore, and for
Hmm.
several reasons, it's very hard. But you do need to learn how to pause and say goodbye, and
Yeah.
that can be for the team, but also for the clients, like what you
Yeah.
shared about that client.
Yes. Yes.
Because yeah, people change, or maybe the moment you met and you start working, you are in a different phase of your life or of your
Hmm.
growth. And
Hmm.
sometimes not sometimes, always life happens and things change, so
Hmm.
you do need to work to maintain relationships, as we kept on saying, but you do need to also um, be mature enough when you need to say goodbye.
Yeah. It's like detach with love.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
it's not personal, it's not bad, or it's
Sure.
just
Right.
purely
Right. It's just
it's not
time.
working. Yeah.
Yep. It's just time. Um, so I'm just going to share a third piece because I don't think I had mentioned it yet about when I was mentioning earlier about how small businesses can focus on or leverage their own kind of creativity and how to
Mm-hmm.
expand their team or how to grow their team capacity and team skills, etc. So one of the things that I also have been doing for years is even though I've been working, my team has been on all contractors and freelancers, I still offer them opportunities for professional development.
Yeah.
So there are courses that I find. And so right now it's been a majority of things that I find and think of them and say, is this of interest to you? Um, on occasion, they'll see something and share with me, but I want to expand that and have them play more active roles in finding things that are of interest to them. But so
Mm-hmm.
far, it's been majority me finding things, and then I'll send it to one of them or a couple of them and say, "Hey, does this appeal to you?" And so, what I have done so far is compensate them for the time to take the course or to do the class or whatever it is. Um, so, I'm sorry. What do I do? No, yeah, it depends. So often I will pay for them to take the course. And then sometimes, depending on how much it is, I'll also pay them for the time to complete it. So it depends because one of the ones they did was like 20 hours or more and had a higher ticket that they probably wouldn't have done. So I paid for that. And then they spent their own time doing the coursework kind of it.
You
But
kind
then
of
we worked
balance that.
together on,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we always have that conversation depending on what it is. But I would say, this is something that they regularly share, like they, offer feedback on that they really like that. And that's something that I've just been doing because I felt like the right thing to do and it creates a lot of value. But then I backed into looking at the data and it turns out that, the average organization will typically spend 1 to 5% of their salary on professional development.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I looked at the numbers, I'm like, wow. So I generally do 5 to 10% if the value is there, and I see that
Yeah.
it's going to play a direct role or whatnot. But so that's another area that I think small businesses can also look to leverage opportunities to help somebody to develop another skill that then can in turn help your business. But it helps that person, it helps them to feel like you're creating an environment for them to develop, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
thing that a lot of people are looking at. So sure, they want to have a high salary and all these things, but an opportunity to develop professionally and have professional relationships and get to meet people and etc., there's also a lot of value there. So I have
Yeah,
done that.
definitely. That's a very good approach. And you do see it with corporates usually having that, and they have an
Yep.
education or talent department where they do
Yep.
work quite actively. I
Yep.
have to say though, those at least back in the day when I used to work for a corporate, they were kind of limited to what the company was interested. So definitely they brought a lot of value, but they were very focused on a specific area. But
Mm.
now I do feel they expand a little bit. So I do like bringing that part into smaller companies
Mm.
as well. Of course,
Yeah.
the financial side always plays a role. Like, are you able to, as a small business or agency owner, to cover
Hmm.
those costs? Then you do need to find that balance. But always,
Yeah. If it's sorry, it's like
yeah,
covering the cost, but I feel like it's such a tip. It's like that's the most conventional view, and it's valid, of
yeah.
course. But I feel like looking just at
What's the
least
return of the investment?
yeah,
Yeah,
just explore the other side and what is the potential that can be
yeah.
realized from that. I mean, you can't do everything based on potential, but at least to stretch the brain to start to consider the opportunity for potential to start to germinate.
Yeah. Just not look only at the numbers, basically. Just look a
Right,
little bit further than that.
right,
I
right.
I think we touched upon so many things, and I'm looking at the time, and I think this
Yeah,
was one of our longest
I know.
or but I
I know.
do hope, yeah,
No, I think we need to have part two of this because I still feel like, I still have all these other things. So maybe we'll circle back to part two.
maybe let's ask also the audience if you want to hear more about that. Let us know in the comments, and definitely will. I do feel we need more time on this topic. Maybe it would be
Yeah,
interesting actually to have some questions from the audience and answer or address them during our next
yeah,
part two,
yeah.
or maybe even have a
Or
guest.
I guess, or even next time I could talk about because I will be looking to add some more folks to the team, probably Q4 of this year or Q1 2024. So
Who
perhaps in
wants
a
to
future
work for
episode we could,
Jillian? Now
yeah,
is the
with,
time.
with, with,
with
with,
with
with,
with
yeah, yeah,
Same
conmigo,
for us.
conmigo. Yes. Yeah, but that's so maybe we could chat about that because
Yeah,
yeah, the way I see team and this has evolved a lot. So there's a bit more I could share about that um in terms of like business development and the roles of people and how I see the 2.0 version of the TJG team. So yeah, so maybe that's a future episode as well.
definitely. So with that, I think shall we put a stop now and definitely follow us for part two? That I'm not sure if it will be the next. I don't think will be the next episode, but probably in a couple of episodes.
It's like a cliffhanger. Stay tuned.
Yes, stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Yeah.
Not to miss it.
Yeah.
Thank you all for
All right.
tuning in, and until
All
next
right.
time.
Cheers.